I will tell you though, up until the day that it happened, I had no idea if it was going to be a total flop or a success.
Hello, welcome to Hired the Podcast. As usual, I'm Travis Miller and joined today by a woman who needs probably no introduction. Got Nikki Gonzales here today. Nikki, you a seasoned professional, who's currently with Weintek, serving as Director of Business Development, also incredibly well known for her presence in the industry, hosting the wonderful podcast Automation Ladies with Ali G, as well as organizing community events like OT SCADA CON and being up on stage at almost all of our industry events from time to time. Nikki, thanks for being here today.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So I'm curious, you're a great person to ask about this because you recently joined Weintek earlier this year. What's it like out there? What's the job market like for people searching for their next thing? What was your experience finding your next position in the current environment?
I will have to be honest and say I haven't looked for a job since probably my first job at Keyence. Well, I mean, I looked for that one through the campus recruiting system. And then I lucked out in the sense that I didn't really know much about this industry at all, or the fact that it even existed. I just looked for engineering type jobs that didn't require an engineering degree because I got a business degree. But I really like problem solving. My dad is an engineer. I always wanted to do something technical, but I just didn't want to be that, like, what I thought was a stereotypical engineer sitting in a corner by themselves at a desk, like working on their computer and not talking to people. I had forced myself to learn to be outgoing when I was younger, when I moved here, and I had a hard time fitting in and making friends. And I decided that I was going to force myself to do hard things. So I took theater class and these things like that. And I joined LinkedIn. LinkedIn was early when I was in college. It had just started, and I was told by my business school professors to use it as a resume. And apparently, working at Keyence is a great place to start your resume because everybody wants to hire the well-trained people from Keyence. So I would say most of my career has been more so inbound, like recruiters contacting me. And then as I got a little bit more seasoned, I went from Keyence to working for Festo. And at Festo, I started going to trade shows. So Semicon, I was an account manager or a sales engineer in the Bay Area. And I started going to some trade shows. And then sort of every job I took after that, I was typically out doing something visible. And I realized that people kind of saw me in action. Mm-hmm. And I would usually get like maybe connection requests. I remember I started getting some job offers from people in adjacent booths to mine at trade shows. Because we kind of mentioned before the podcast, I probably shouldn't have scheduled this today. I'm on site at a company called Azerol in Minnesota doing a visit with them. But I really am one of those people that just kind of pulls up my sleeves and makes things work. Mm-hmm. And that kind of goes I put in usually like about if cliche to say, but 110% into anything that I choose to take on. And I think that shows. So I was lucky to be in a position that made me visible to people and they got to see me in action. So I didn't necessarily have to send out a resume to say what I was capable of. And well, I take that back. Once in my career, I left a job and I kind of thought about switching from sales to customer success because I was tired of like the ups and downs of the sales goals and all that kind of stuff. And I thought I would just love to do like a good day's work and be able to be satisfied with that and not start over next month at zero every time. And I tried sending out my resume to jobs and people that didn't know me. And it was not successful for me. So I've kind of, since then, always ended up working for someone that knows me from a prior job or somebody that I've tried to sell to or that was my customer. And the same goes for Weintek. I actually had not left my last job when they approached me at a trade show and told me that they had an open position coming up and they would love for me to consider it. And I actually did say no to that position because it wasn't a good fit for me, but we figured out that we would love to work together. So they ended up kind of making a position that made sense for me. And So for me, it's really been trying to make my work visible enough to people and myself so that I don't have to send out my resume, because I think that's a really hard place to be right now in the job market, from what I've heard. Unfortunately, I know quite a few people that have been laid off recently, and it seems to be a losing proposition to be sending out your resume to people that don't know you, that have no idea who you are, and you're just being run through an AI algorithm.
It's hard. I think LinkedIn has really shot themselves in the foot with this, with the easy apply button. I think it's one of the worst things to happen to job seekers out there, because anytime a job gets put up on LinkedIn, which is where most people are searching for jobs these days, it's so easy to just hit easy apply, easy apply, easy apply. And people don't even know what they're applying to. Hundreds of candidates for every job versus, I'm not sure if you even knew what you were doing when you started on LinkedIn, but you're so visible there and at these industry events and putting on your own events that people like you, people like Allie and Chris and Ann Wyatt, you known commodities in the industry. Right. You're always present, presenting the value that you can provide to an organization so that you are top of mind. What do you think stops so many people, especially people in sales and customer facing roles, from doing what it is that you do and continuing to always be present?
Probably a few things. I mean, one thing, it took me a long time to get over my insecurity of how I look and sound on camera, and to not overthink what you're putting out there, because it can be paralyzing. I know for when I started the podcast and I was trying to edit it myself, it took me months to, I never got anything out because I was never happy with my own work. And I've been kind of lucky in that I never really did a lot with social media as like on my personal life. And so I haven't had that, like when I take a picture and I need it to be perfect and I'm trying to show some sort of, like, I feel like there is this perception that if you're going to put yourself out there, it has to be some sort of perfect image. You have to always look great. You have to always sound great. You have to always know what you're talking about. You have to be some sort of expert, or that there's some sort of perceived threshold as to what makes you worthy of being out there. And I, at some point in my life, and I talk to people and they're often surprised at like how much I've done or how many things I've gone through or tried. And it's a combination of my personality and my ADHD that I just can't stop myself from constantly doing new things and trying new things. But at some point I just got over that fear and I realized that I don't care what people think about me. Some people, I would rather attract the type of people that actually appreciate me for me and let those people that don't like me for me not like me, and I don't have to work with everyone. And so I remember I was asked to be on a podcast when I took a break from the tech industry and I started a real estate business with my husband. Mm-hmm. And there was this real estate podcast that I really liked listening to. And I went to a meetup and I met the host and I told her something about my project. And she's like, "Oh, that would make a great podcast. Do you want to come on?" And I was just like, "Oh no." I was like, "Nah, I could never. I sound like a 12-year-old girl. And, I wouldn't want to put my voice out there." And that was only a few years ago. But I think when I met Allie G and I saw that she was putting a lot of content on LinkedIn and she was posting from trade shows, and I just realized how much I appreciated her content. And I thought, if she was afraid of looking perfect and didn't put that out, I would be missing out. So maybe I should, just be brave enough to do it and not care what people think. And it's easier said than done, but it's a muscle that you can exercise just like anything else.
The more you do it, the easier it gets, and the less you take to heart the people that don't like you. I'm amazed. There's a quote, and I'm amazed how much I use it on a day-to-day basis and how much it makes sense because of where it's from. But when Wayne tells Garth in Wayne's World, Led Zeppelin didn't write tunes that everybody liked. They left that to the Bee Gees.
Yeah.
And sure, the Bee Gees are great, but who'd rather be the Bee Gees than Led Zeppelin? Just, you do you, and if you're not people's thing, then that person's probably not for you either. You probably wouldn't like doing business with them either. So I'm curious, what motivated you to create a podcast focusing on woman's perspective in the industrial technology industry? What made you two decide that this is the platform, this is the message that we want to focus on?
So actually, Allie started a group chat, or actually it was another girl, Jordan Yates, who was doing some YouTube content at the time. She was a sales engineer that started a little group chat because we, I guess, just found that there was a couple of women that we knew that were either posting content or creating content. And Jordan started the group, and then she was like, hey, add anybody that you can think of that, think would be interested. And Allie was really trying to push other women to create more technical content because we just wanted to see more representation of ourselves. She had graduated from Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology, which is like a very male-heavy engineering school. In fact, they didn't graduate any women until I think 1995.
Wow.
Because they were men-only school. But we both, I took AP Physics in high school, and I was the only girl in the class. And I joined Keyence, and I was one of maybe 5 girls in a 300-person sales force. And I've always been comfortable with that. That's not been a problem for me. I kind of... I didn't really like the drama of girls. And honestly, I was like, this is more straightforward. Problem solving, engineering, it's less, less confusing for me to figure out. And I've also learned now as an adult, I have ADHD, and there are a lot more neurodiverse people in the engineering fields. I think it kind of attracts that kind of maybe atypical type of thinking to do all this problem solving. So I gravitated towards that, and I liked it. And I didn't like being shoved in rooms full of women just because we have our gender in common. In fact, I found that I generally enjoyed myself more around a group of guys than a group of women. So I kind of, didn't mind that isolation, being one of the only girls. So we didn't start it as any kind of women's advocacy group, but we just didn't feel, I went to an IEEE Women in Engineering conference once, and I felt really uncomfortable and I didn't like it. And we also find that in these male-dominated heavy industries, oftentimes women are more competitive with each other than supportive. And I had found that particularly with older women. I didn't really find a lot of mentorship or anything. And so when we put together this, we came into this LinkedIn chat, I was pleasantly surprised at how I liked actually interacting with these women that were also into controls and robotics and automation. And Courtney Fernandez, who is now also a co-host, she started a little Saturday Zoom meeting for women that were interested in robotics. She had a UR in her garage, and she was like, hey, anybody else that wants to jump on, even if you got kids or whatever you got going on, let's just jump on a call. And Allie and I were both part of that, but we never met on a Zoom call on a Saturday. We were always at different times. And we just interacted on LinkedIn. I think we might have had one phone call. I sent her some stuff for free because she was building a little demo turbo encabulator thing that she had behind her in a lot of her posts. And she was trying to push more women to make technical content because we were both yeah, we love seeing other women post technical stuff. And I guess we found that we did being in a group of women that actually had technical things in common that we wanted to talk about, not just the fact that, we're women in the industry. And then my idea for the podcast, actually, I was listening to a podcast called Office Ladies, which is Pam and Angela from The Office. Yeah. And they're actually best friends in real life. And they have a podcast where they get together and get to be friends and then also talk about a common topic that they're nostalgic about in this case, which is filming their time on The Office. And when I listened to it, I don't know, this idea came up. I was like, it would be super cool if I just had a friend or two that we could talk about automation and nerd out about that. And then maybe some other women in pockets around the country or maybe even elsewhere, right, that don't have a lot of women in their workplace that they can relate to or want to be friends with. Maybe some of them will hear this kind of conversation and, that will be fun for them to listen to. And so that's where the name came from, the inspiration, just as well as the concept. And it wasn't so much about talking about women as much as it was a couple of women talking about automation.
Have you noticed a shift in the industry at all over the last couple years or couple months on the diversity of the industry? Because we're running out of people to do these jobs as the boomers are aging out. Have you noticed a shift in the people that are entering the workforce?
I mean, I obviously don't do research. I don't have a macro view of this that is any kind of, number that I would trust, but okay. Yes. I've seen an increase for sure since when I started. But then there's also still rooms full of guys. Like I was at a conference 3 weeks ago, an Industry 4.0 conference. It was like 600 and something people, and very noticeably few minorities or women in the room, as well as on the stage. There was one female MC, which I really appreciated. I liked seeing her up there and be part of it. And she's also, of course, incredibly qualified. And I don't support, shoving women up on stage just for the sake of it, or any minority group for that matter. But making an effort to try to find qualified people that could represent different types of people, I think is important. And there are a lot of people in the industry that don't think it matters and don't think it's important, and they don't think that it's worth making an effort. And so I still walk into a lot of conferences and rooms where it's very clear that like there is not a lot of demographic change. But in other associations, like let's say A3, I've seen, an increase of women at those conferences from year to year since I've joined. AHTD, the Association of High Tech Distribution, there are more women there every year that I go. So I was actually just having a conversation with my host for this trip, Matt Hunt, the general manager of Azrael. And he is in the typical demographic in our industry, right? Kind of, he's in management. He's a white man with a beard. Yeah. And he was like, yeah, I think it's gotten a lot better. But then like we told him some of the stuff that's happened to us even just in the last year or two. And he's like, I didn't even think that was still happening. So I think there's like two stories, right? It is getting better, but it's not like some sort of, oh, we've solved it and it's not a problem anymore.
No, it definitely hasn't.
And I've heard people, I interviewed someone on my podcast and I mentioned her earlier, Jordan Yates. And she told the story on our podcast, so it's public knowledge, but she was interviewed for a sales engineer role coming out of college. And one of the interviewers straight up told her, we don't think women make as good sales engineers as men. Why do you think you belong here? And they hired a classmate of hers before they gave her a job offer. And she helped him prep for that interview and used to help him with his homework at school.
Huh.
So
yeah.
And she took the job to kind of prove them wrong that, she in fact could do it. But then, of course, it turned out to be a pretty toxic environment.
I'm sure.
A great place to be.
I'm sure. It's amazing. And so much of it, I think, comes from the company philosophy. I was talking to an organization, this is a couple years ago, about potentially helping them hire somebody. And I was talking to the female human resources manager at this company who told me, I don't want to hire any gals that are going to get knocked up in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Verbatim.
And it's not just men, right? It's general. I know somebody that's an INC tech in the oil and gas industry. And there are like straight up discriminatory practices by HR leaders in that industry that just say, no, we're not hiring women. And they think they don't belong in the field, or that their guys are going to be uncomfortable, or, for whatever number of reasons, right? Misguided reasons. But I think it's a company culture thing at this point. And so one of the missions, honestly, Automation Ladies was kind of started, like a lot of my ideas. I have a lot of them, and sometimes I just act on them. I don't tend to overplan things because then I get nothing done. So oftentimes, like Allie and I are good at this. We kind of kickstart something, and then it takes the other person to kind of kick the ball again next time, and we help each other get things done. But I didn't have like some huge overarching mission of advancing women in the industry with this podcast.
Sure.
It was kind of what I mentioned before. Like, I would like a friend to talk about this. I think maybe other people would like it. Let's give it a shot.
Yeah. And you two really, you really feed off each other. I want to talk, hear more about OT SCADA CON and what was the impetus for you two a couple years ago saying, this is something we need to do. Because I actually was playing around with the idea of starting a meeting, for lack of a better word, a national meeting, bringing people together. And I just barely dip my toe in the water until I'm like, holy shit, this is going to be really hard and really expensive. So what made you two want to do that?
So that was all Allie's idea. She had mentioned to me that she wanted to do some sort of in-person thing, training. Training is more so what she was thinking about, putting out a training class and this is actually, so you say a couple of years ago, you would think that we started planning this a couple of years ago. It was literally 1 year ago from now that we even came up with this idea, or it was in February of 2024. We went to a training in Dallas, an IC industrial controls networking training by a small company called Traceroute. So a friend of ours, Josh Varghese, is a subject matter expert in industrial networking, and he gives training usually at facilities to groups of engineers at like a plant to his customers. But he had a lot of like people asking like, hey, we only have like a couple people, we can't afford for you to come, but can you hold a class where we could come on site? And a lot of these people ended up being like smaller integrators that wanted to get more proficient in networking. And so quite a few of them are on LinkedIn. And as they signed up for this, he started calling it Traceroute Con. It was a 2-day training class. And Allie and I attended this class. And it was one of just the coolest training events we've ever been to, because Josh is a really good teacher. He's a really good presenter. He has a sense of humor. He was able to take a subject that most people would find probably pretty dry and boring, and make it something fun over 2 days. And then one of the attendees, Caleb Travis, who is a young business owner in his 20s from Texas. He's also on LinkedIn. He organized a karaoke night after the official barbecue dinner, and we all had an amazing time. Allie and I opened like to a very cold, quiet room of 23 engineers standing up against the wall, and completely sober, we like did a Spice Girls duet, and it just loosened everybody up. They're like, we were so terrible that you can't be worse than us. Like, this is totally fine. Just do it. And that's kind of what we do with a lot of things, like the podcast. I had no idea how hard it would be to produce a podcast. So I naively was like, yeah, let's just do this. I'll figure it out. And Allie just said yes to me. I don't know why. We didn't even really know each other at the time. And so she was like, when we were at that event, she's like, this is the kind of conference that I want to do. But instead of it just being industrial networking, I want it to be multiple different topics within industrial automation. Because she was like, I know process automation really well, but like, I don't know as much about robotics. So we could have, and she thinks in lists a little bit. Like, she's the kind of engineer that like, she will create a list out of pretty much anything. And she came up with what to her were like the 23 kind of sequential topics within operational technology, starting with, field devices, inputs, outputs, PLCs, HMIs, and then just kind of moving up all the way up to like Industry 4.0. So the name of it she came up with was OT SCADA CON. OT being operational technology, but the idea is that it's kind of like everything we see as under the umbrella of SCADA. Okay. Right. So SCADA stands for Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition, and it usually sits on top of PLCs and other factory automation devices. So we kind of got the idea. We had also attended Inductive Community Conference the year before. The Ignition Community Conference run by Inductive Automation. Mm-hmm. And they had a very like community feel to this conference. And we just wanted to do something similar. So in February last year, after attending Traceroute Con, Allie thought of this. She came up with her list on a notepad from Traceroute Con. And then by March, she posted it on LinkedIn. She had gotten Caleb Travis and another integrator out of Texas to agree to come help her teach these classes. And she just posted it. She's like, we're doing a conference. It's in Houston. It's in July. And sign up. And I messaged her and I was like, because she had talked about it. And I was like, yeah, this is a great idea. Maybe a few years from now. And she just put it out there. And then I messaged her. I was like, hey, so how are you selling tickets to this thing? She was like, I don't know. People message me. Maybe I'll send them an invoice. And I was like, I think you should get a ticket website up. So I went ahead over the weekend and like put together an event on Eventbrite and, got ticket sales up and then we started promoting it. And because we already have a pretty big network, mm-hmm. we sold a couple tickets. And then we had to snafu where Eventbrite like shut down our site, and it was took me like 3 weeks to get that back up and running. And it was, just a total cluster. But then we started getting people, they're like, well, I don't see a speaker for the subject. Like, can I be a speaker at this? And it just kind of like, not to say that it happened on its own. It did not. It was an incredible amount of work, and we worked a lot of nights and weekends, and we ended up having to pay people to help us. And it took a lot. But I think part of why we are able to do things is because we don't try to overthink them. And I think we've realized that like being naive about how much effort something is going to be can sometimes be a plus, because once you're in it, you can't back out. Mm-hmm. And I know plenty of people that have thought about doing a conference, but thought it was too hard or thought that it's something that's too complicated to do. And so they're not going to, it's a future thing or not a right now thing. And I think something that we kind of do for each other, and this is the same thing for the podcast, is we're willing to kind of help each other pick up the balls as they roll. Mm-hmm. And we both juggle a lot of balls. But honestly, it took the both of us. It was totally her brainchild, though, in terms of the conference, the name of it, the topics of it. But then I will say I took over the majority of the planning, and I planned it like it was, honestly, to me, it was like I planned my own wedding like 10 years ago, and I was kind of bummed I would never get to learn from that experience and do it better again, because I don't plan on ever getting divorced and remarried. And so this was my opportunity to exercise my event planning skills. And I will tell you though, up until the day that it happened, I had no idea if it was going to be a total flop or a success.
Well, it had to be at least a partial success since you're doing it again.
It was. And it was really incredible. We were really just, a lot of it was very organic. It wasn't due to us. It was also the speakers that we that we chose. The people that volunteered themselves to be part of this. It really was like people that identify with the type of thing that we do or want to do. They came, they wanted to support it. And then they all supported each other. We had a lot of first-time speakers. So we didn't do, we don't have any paid keynote speakers. We don't have people that are necessarily at the top of their fields or some sort of experts. We just wanted people that were doing the thing on a daily basis and could talk about that thing with conviction, with real life examples of what they're doing, what they like, what they don't like, what tips and tricks they've learned. And at the very beginning of the conference, I also decided, I was like, hey, there's a few things about this that are going to be different from any other conference that you've ever been to. And if a speaker up there struggles or says the wrong thing, I was like, if you're the kind of person that would deride them or sneer at them or give them a cold look or boo them, you don't belong here, please leave. I would like you to be uplifting and helpful and come together if somebody needs help, because that's the type of community I want to be involved in. Mm-hmm. And people really took that to heart. And we did have some speakers that froze a little bit because it was their first time or they were nervous, and everybody in the crowd it felt like a community, like a supportive community. And we had people there from machinists and techs and brand new engineers that had never been to a conference before to CEOs of companies in our industry. And they all sat in that room together like equals. And it was incredible. So I will have to say part of it was the community that we have that made it successful.
Was there anything that you learned that first year that you're changing up for year two or you would have done differently?
Yeah, tons of stuff. First of all, don't serve banh mi sandwiches without chips or sides for lunch. That was an accident on my part that the chips didn't make it there. And then, lots of people loved them and they were like, oh, I've either never had this kind of sandwich before and it's amazing. Or yes, some food that's not a boring conference sandwich box. But then other people were like, what the heck is this? And why would you put pickled carrots on a sandwich? And why are you serving this to me?
It's so good. It's so good.
Yes, it's really good. We had tacos, we had El Pollo Loco, we had barbecue. I mean, we wanted to do something different. We also got really lucky. Actually, Josh introduced us to Phoenix Contact had offered to host his training, but he didn't want it to be at a vendor location. He wanted it to be vendor neutral. Our conference is also vendor neutral, but we actually are hosting it at vendor experience centers because we like being at a place that relates to what we do and has demos and tech equipment on the wall instead of just another hotel or a convention center. So last year we hosted it at the Phoenix Contact Experience Center in Houston. They were incredibly gracious hosts. They asked us for nothing in return. They just gave us a space and let us do the thing and supported and did giveaways. And then this year we're hosting at the Anders Hauser Experience Center and their rep called Vector Controls and Automation. But it's just, and we've had a few sponsors that are like, oh, I don't want to sponsor that because that's our competitor, which that's fine. We also constantly get requests from sponsors to be speakers, which we've taken a hard line against. All of our speakers are people that we feel are qualified for our criteria, which is they're out there practicing what they're preaching. they're not just from a vendor talking about how great their stuff is or, something like that. So, there's a lot of people that aren't a fit with our conference. But I think if anything, I learned also to just be confident in that hard line. Like, we're not everybody's conference. We're not Automate. We're not Pack Expo. We're not Prove It conference. We're OT SCADA CON, and we're going to do things the way our community feels comfortable with. Mm-hmm. We also did agree to a lot of, we wanted to give, so one of the ways that vendors can interact with us at OT SCADA CON is to give away their technology to our attendees. You can't come have a table and pitch people, but you can put your product there and pitch people that way. And so we did a technology raffle. We gave away over $50,000 worth of hardware and software to the attendees, including training and PLCs and SCADA systems and HMIs and sensors and all kinds of stuff. It was really cool. But we also were like, hey, anybody that wants to give stuff. And then we just ended up with a lot of administrative overhead for things. And so we've learned, we do have to say no to some things, even though in theory they sound amazing. And we have to watch how much extra work things create for us, because we're a small team.
Yeah.
We don't have there's nobody doing this full time. There's nobody that's, even in this, that has any event planning experience or anything like that. But I think we're also going from 2 days, because we had 2 very packed days, and we ended up Friday at 5. And then Phoenix Contact was like, hey, yeah, we need to go home. Can you be out of here by 6? And so I literally had to open my arms and shove people out at the end. Because of course people want to mingle and talk to each other on the way out and stuff like that. And so we did learn, we're starting one day earlier this year. So on Wednesday, and then we're going to end halfway through the day on Friday. So people can go hang out if they want to, or catch a flight home, right, on a Friday instead of having to stay. So there's some logistical stuff that we learned. I don't know that I can avoid a hurricane a couple weeks in advance where I end up losing power for 9 days, but we can try to mitigate some potential issues that may happen, or flooding during the event where our catering is late, stuff like that.
That stuff's always going to happen. Not that exact stuff, hopefully, but
but we did an attendee survey, and we really took that to heart. And there was one person that said, would you attend again? And they said no. And so we reached out to that person. We were like, hey, I would love to hear more about the feedback as to why you wouldn't come again. And he gave us some more feedback. And we were like, okay, we would love for you to be on our kind of advisory board to try to, because the couple things that he had to say were completely things we didn't anticipate and we didn't realize might have been a problem. And so we asked him to please help us make sure that doesn't happen again. And he went from, I'm not coming again, to, well, if my boss doesn't approve the time, I'll take PTO and come. So we also just, realized that we're not necessarily the master orchestrators of this. We don't know everything. We didn't know that having a conference room with a glass door where some of the organizers were hanging out seemed like it was some sort of special club that other people weren't invited to, right? It wasn't intentional. It was just something that kind of happened. And so we learned that we need to, let more people take more input, right? We can't accommodate everyone for everything, but we really want to be the kind of conference where everybody feels like they belong and that they get some value out of it, that they feel included. And part of that is also just listening, not having the ego that I know how to run a conference the best, but I want it to be a place where people want to come back.
That's a very difficult combination of skills to have that you just mentioned. The ability to understand that not everybody is for me and I'm not for everybody, and to be able to be okay with that, but also to be able to listen to somebody that disagrees with you if they're coming from a good place. To be able to do both of those things is incredibly difficult.
Yeah. It's difficult to execute too. I can't please everyone, and I think it really is, like you said, it depends on if it's coming from a good place.
Mm-hmm. So I kind of want to bring this full circle back to the beginning where you said you've never really had to look for a job. You're always being approached because you're so present. How much of what you're doing is conscious in that, and how much of it is just who you are? When you're starting a podcast, when you're putting on a conference for industry peers and leaders of other organizations that are seeing you, how much of it is just well, I just want to talk to a friend of mine about automation because it's cool. And I just want to put together a conference because there's not a conference like this. And I think I would benefit from it and other people would benefit from it. Or do you say, you know what? By me being so visible in these areas, I'm going to be more successful in my current role. And if and when there's a next role, it's going to be much easier for me to get because they're already going to be thinking of me for it.
I think I'm lucky that it's a combination of both. It's my personality and my drive has always been to kind of go the extra mile. I really like to help. I've often said that if being in sales didn't pay better, I would have been happy to be the sales support person. I used to work for my dad when I was little, and I just always knew that like the company needs lots of things done. And if I could help in any area, I would. And I went to my first trade show with my dad's company, actually. It was the Great American Trucking Show in Dallas. And it was me and my dad's office manager that were mainly in the booth. And I just knew that like my dad's business needed business. So I tried to talk to everyone. And back then, I think it's still a culture with some companies, but some people show up to a conference and kind of sit in their booth and talk to each other. And I saw that at a lot of the booths around us. And we were like, what are they even doing? Are they not even trying? Like for us, this was a big expense. It was a big risk to be there. So we were going to try to get as much out of it as we could. And I remember the CEO of the parent company of my dad's company at the time ended up complimenting me at how well he was impressed that we were so hardworking at the trade show. And we worked so hard to get leads into the booth. We talked to everyone. And I learned a lot of this from my office manager, Chastity Mori, who started out as my dad's executive assistant. She just had an incredible drive, and she's really smart and really conscientious. And she was kind of my manager while I worked there. And then I realized too when I was at Festo, I did a lot of sort of like extracurricular things that weren't required, but they were, and the same thing at Keyence, honestly. I think also part of it being like the only girl or one of the few, I always felt like I did have to work harder to prove myself. And I think I probably heard that in some rhetoric, like, oh, women have to like put in that much more work to prove that they're worthy. And so I did take that to heart. I was like, I'm going to work harder than anybody else. I'm going to make sure that my gender does not mean that I am less capable, and I want everyone to see that. So I used to always, like when I did machine vision sales at Keyence, I would go to coffee shops on the weekends to like learn all the new programming and study so that I could teach the rest of the sales force when new things came out. And I found that gave me more attention from management. I was like more likely to be noticed doing those extra things. And I remember over the years too, I had to kind of bargain with my husband because he was always like, why are you doing this thing? Are you getting paid extra for that? Like, are you required to be there? Like, why are you going to this dinner or to this thing? And I'm like, I think that it's extra, yes, but this is what is going to get me ahead. And so I think I kind of had that drive, part of like, I guess maybe the expectation of being the only woman, I had to work harder. But I think it's also my personality. Like I've never been a slacker. I've always kind of tried to do my best. I feel like it's just bred in me in some way. Like my whole family has a really good work ethic. But I noticed that work. And so I just have reinforced that over my entire career. Do more, and make sure people see it. Because what's the point of doing more if nobody knows?
I have a hunch that nobody on the planet has ever called you a slacker. Just gonna guess.
No. And I did used to think though that my work ethic was very normal. And I did not have a high self-esteem when I was younger. I didn't think I was anything special. I didn't think that I was smart or attractive or any of those things. Like young girls sometimes struggle with this. And I've also read that like, especially girls with ADHD, which is often undiagnosed, they often tend to have anxiety and sometimes low self-esteem problems because we're different and we can't figure out why we don't fit in, especially maybe with other girls that are more normal. So for me, it wasn't until I got out in the workforce and people started complimenting me on things that I thought were normal. And then when I started working with other people, not necessarily in my own companies, but just being an adult, you encounter a lot of professionals in different fields, right? Insurance or real estate or banking or whatever. And I just started noticing how many people are either incompetent or don't try very hard. And it kind of blew me away that like many people that get paid for doing things don't care to try very hard. And so I used to think of that thing as just being like, I'm just on par. Like I'm just doing what everybody else would do. And then I think as I got more positive feedback about my hard work, I did start to turn that image around and think, you know what? My hard work is actually something that is maybe not super special. Like I don't think I'm some sort of special superstar, but I think there are people that, you know, kind of work harder. And then there are some people that are content with being mediocre. And I've never understood that, but it did start to like raise my self-esteem as I started to get more results from my hard work.
Well, you deserve it. So Nikki, if people are interested in finding out more about OT SCADA CON or what you're doing with Weintek, or if they think they'd be a good guest on Automation Ladies, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Thank you. So we have, if you want to be a guest on Automation Ladies, please. It's more like I want you to actually want to be a guest. And I would love for you to have actually listened to our podcast. I don't like to be pitched by PR people or marketing people that clearly have no idea what our show is about, what our community is about, what we would like to talk about. If you have listened to the show and you think it's something for you, we would love to talk to you. We have our email is hello@automationladies.io. You can also message me on LinkedIn anytime. I invite people to the show routinely. Our main criteria is, are we interested in talking to you? And if we are, then we will have you on the show. It's not a pay to play. You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to be a leader. You just have to have something that's interesting that we think would be interesting to talk about. And mainly we talk about your story and what you do and, you know, that sort of stuff. For OT SCADA CON, tickets are on sale. It's July 23rd through the 25th. Our website is otscada.com. Not otscadacon.com. Don't go to that website. It's being held ransom by someone else. That's not us, and I'm not going to pay for it. And then, Weintek. I actually started that job. It's an incredible group of people with an incredible product line that is, I hate to say this, but one of the best kept secrets in industry. We are an HMI manufacturer. We've been making them for 30 years. And I loathe that we don't have pricing on our website, which is WeintekUSA.com. It's spelled WEINTEK. Many people say Weintek, USA.com. But it's an incredibly high-end, capable, feature-filled, modern HMI with absolutely free software there's no licensing fees, no ongoing fees for anything. We have secure remote access capabilities on the HMI without having to have a separate appliance. We've got a line of remote I/O. And our pricing, like, your jaw will drop. We don't sell anything over like $1,800. And I think it's one of those things that I would love to change this year, is just to make that more widely available and like for people to know that, because I think a lot of people look at our product and they think, oh, this is going to be expensive. And it's not. So sorry for a little sales pitch there, but it's also, like you mentioned, I'm very visible. I have a network. I have some influence. I have a lot of job opportunities that I could take. People over the years have often told me, or I've been offered jobs when I'm not available. I chose this company for a reason, because I really like their culture. I like what they stand for. I like how they do business. And I think their products are incredible. And it's a small product line, so I don't have to be selling everything to everyone. I really think that I think it's kind of important to pick something and stand for it and be good at that thing and not try to be everything to everyone. And I saw that in this company as well, and I chose to join their team. And they, of course, also really support our mission at Automation Ladies and what we do with OT SCADA CON and everything else. So if you're particularly an OEM machine builder and you haven't looked at Weintek HMIs or the other products really that people don't know about, I would love for you to go to WeintekUSA.com or reach out to me on LinkedIn. We have a great YouTube channel as well. We post a lot of content there, how-tos. We have free tutorials on our website. And you can download our software, our HMI development software, which is great for learning and simulating. And it's our full-blown development environment. It is completely free to download from our website, from our support forum. So I would love for more people to know that. And thank you for giving me the chance to let people know.
My pleasure. Thank you for being on the show today, Nikki Gonzales. It has been a pleasure. Thank you, as always, to Noah Cuff, our producer. This has been Higher Than Podcast. I'm Travis Miller, and we'll talk to you soon. Nikki, thank you.
Thank you, Travis.
You bet.